The day Boston drowned in syrup. It moved faster than a train. It killed 24 people, and it was made of molasses. It was a surprisingly mild Tuesday afternoon in Boston, Massachusetts. The date was January 15th, 1919, a perfect midwinter day, unseasonably warm, with the temperature hovering around 40. People were just getting back to work after the New Year holiday, trudging through the North End neighborhood, a vibrant, densely packed community right on the waterfront. But that ordinary day was about to be utterly consumed by one of the most bizarre and terrifying industrial accidents in American history, the Great Molasses Flood. A colossus of sugar. To understand this disaster, we have to look up, high up, at an enormous black steel tank owned by the Purity Distilling Company. It stood just feet from the elevated train line, a hulking structure, 50 feet tall and 90 feet in diameter, capable of holding over 2 million gallons of raw molasses. Why so much molasses? This was right before the start of Prohibition. The molasses was an essential raw material. It was destined to be fermented into industrial alcohol, which was then used to make rum, but also munitions and other essential products. This tank was a ticking bomb of pure, sticky sugar. Now here's the astonishing fact. The tank was known to be a structural disaster waiting to happen. Local children would collect the sweet, sticky syrup that constantly leaked from the seams of the tank, a fact the company completely ignored. Residents complained about the deep, rumbling groans and creaks the tank would make, sound so loud they were often mistaken for passing subway trains. Just days before the tragedy, the tank had been filled to near capacity with a fresh shipment of molasses from the Caribbean. The explosion. At approximately 12:30 p.m., workers were enjoying their lunch break. The city was in motion, and then it happened. With a sound described by witnesses as a thunderous roar, a rumble, and the staccato rat-tat-tat of rivets popping like machine gun fire, the colossal steel tank ruptured. It didn't just leak, it catastrophically disintegrated. What followed defies belief. An estimated 2.3 million gallons of molasses, weighing around 12 tons, were instantly released. This massive wave of thick brown syrup formed a gigantic surge, estimated to be between 8 and 25 feet high. Accounts vary, but all agree it was massive. Crucially, the sheer weight and viscosity of the molasses, combined with the unseasonably warm temperatures that had thinned it slightly, allowed it to move with incredible speed. In the first few seconds, it traveled an astonishing distance. Some said it moved at an initial speed of 35 miles per hour. Drowning in syrup. The wave of molasses slammed into the surrounding city block with the force of a battering ram. It tore a fire station right off its foundation, crushing it and killing the horses inside. It derailed a passing elevated train, knocking the steel cars completely off the tracks. It swept people off their feet, carrying them and trapping them under the debris of buildings that had been flattened. The aftermath was a nightmare of epic proportions. The molasses, thick and rapidly cooling in the January air, slowed and became incredibly dense. People found themselves struggling in a chest-deep, suffocating goo. The pressure of the syrup crushed victims, and others literally drowned in the sticky mess. Rescuers struggled as they waded into the heavy fluid, which gripped and slowed their every movement. In all, 21 people were killed, and over 150 were injured. The entire area was covered in a thick, inescapable blanket of molasses. The legal and scientific aftermath. The cleanup took weeks. Firefighters and emergency crews used salt water from the harbor to try and wash the streets, but everything, cars, buildings, even the cobblestones, was stained brown. The air in the north end smelled sickeningly sweet for months, some say even years afterward. But the story doesn't end there. The disaster led to a massive class action lawsuit against Purity Distilling. The company tried to claim the tank had been sabotaged by anarchists or that the explosion was a force of nature, a desperate attempt to avoid liability. The subsequent legal investigation, which lasted 5 years, became one of the first major tort cases in the U.S. to extensively use expert witnesses, including engineers, metallurgists, and physicists. They determined the cause was simple and yet shocking: shoddy construction and negligence. The steel of the tank was too thin, and the design had no proper stress testing. The outcome was a landmark moment for American industry. The company was forced to pay damages, and this catastrophe is credited with forcing a major shift in public safety and building code regulation. Today, any major construction project in the U.S. has to be certified by a licensed engineer, a direct legacy of the molasses that flooded Boston. It remains one of the most unlikely and purely American tragedies. A simple, sweet product turned into a devastating, unstoppable force of nature due to corporate oversight. And on a humid summer day, some Bostonians will still tell you that if you stand in the right spot in the North End, you can still catch a whiff of that sickeningly sweet smell.